G'day mate, it's Matty Graham here from the Exponential Performance Podcast. Welcome to episode 23. Now in this episode, I sit down with elite rower Jack O'Leary and we talk all things from mental preparation, maintaining motivation, training, nutrition, and life as a high level athlete. Let's get into it.
Welcome to the Exponential Performance Podcast. Join sports scientist and performance coach Matty Graham to find out how to train smarter and maximize your performance no matter who you are.
G'day mate, thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Exponential Performance Podcast. Today is episode 23. Now I got a lot of feedback from last week's episode 22, about you owe yourself an explanation. I played a few motivational sound bites that I like from a few videos, and it seemed to struck a nerve with a lot of people. So awesome to hear that feedback, that a lot of people found it useful. And what I thought I'd do today is just ask, what do you use to maintain your motivation? Do you have a favorite video, a favorite song, a favorite book, a favorite quote, whatever it is? Post a link below. I want to know what is your favorite key go-to motivational thing. So post that below, let me know what it is. The other thing I wanted to talk about before we jump into today's episode is how you can get personalized advice from me without the price tag that goes along with my personalized coaching and consulting. I've had a lot of people inquire about my training programs. I do write personalized training programs for people, and I'll post a link where you can find that over on my website. But if you want some personalized advice from me, but you don't want the cost or the price tag that's associated with my personalized coaching and consulting, then seriously consider heading over to my Reach Me account. So you can head over to www.reach.me, as in REACH.me/Matty Graham. That's going to take you over to my profile, and you can get a personalized text response from me for as low as $3.99. So what the idea is that you might not want to work with me specifically, but you may have some specific advice or a specific topic that you want more to learn more about for you specifically. If you head over there, you can send me your questions and I'm going to answer it in either text or a short video or a slightly longer video. And you can get it for as cheap as $3.99. As always, I welcome your questions on the podcast, and if you submit a voice message, I will answer your question for free in the public forum on the podcast. But if you're looking for a little bit more personalized, specific, and even private advice, head over and check out my Reach Me account, because it's a good way of getting what you're after for a slightly lower price tag. And it means that I'm able to put a little bit more thought and emphasis into each of my responses, because I'm not just replying to free emails on a daily basis, trying to chug through my inbox. So there you have it. Go and check that out. Now, in today's episode, I sit down with elite rower Jack O'Leary. Now, I first met Jack when he was a junior doing some metabolic testing, some anaerobic threshold testing, and he has just gone from strength to strength. He has always been an athlete that has always impressed me in his work ethic, in his mental approach to his sport, and his ability just to apply himself and work bloody hard when the going gets tough. He's fresh off a win at the Under-23 World Champs, where he was part of the crew who won the first ever Rowing New Zealand men's quad gold medal. So it's pretty awesome to be able to have this opportunity to talk with Jack. And in it, we talk about his mental approach to training, how he deals with nerves, his training, his nutrition, and everything that goes along with being a high-performance athlete at the top of their game and wanting to get better. So here we go. We jump into an interview with elite rower Jack O'Leary. G'day, mate. How are you?
Yeah, not too bad. Thanks, Matty. Yourself?
Good, mate. Good to chat to you. It's been a bloody long time.
It has.
What's been happening anyway?
Oh, I've just been on a wee bit of a break for the last month, really, which has been very nice.
Nice. Post World Champs?
Yeah, post World Champs. Then we post Elite retrial as well.
Okay. Give us a bit of a rundown on your past, your rowing journey to this point. What does it look like? I was just checking back through emails right then, and my last email communication with you was 2012.
Jeepers.
2012 when, we started, well, probably before that when we started doing a bit of work together, but it's been a big one, so tell us about it.
So I think I started rowing way back in 2009, I must have been about 12. I think it was because the head boy was a rower at school, and actually, Mum and Dad both said they rowed back at university, and at the time I thought, they said they were pretty good. They went to Easter Tourney, I think they called it, and at the time I thought that was, the New Zealand Championships, and as I realised, it's a bit more of a uni student's weekend, isn't it? And but yeah, so I went down to the local club, and for the first year it was pretty cruisy, pretty laid back, which was, I think, quite good because it helped me form a bit more of a love for the sport, I think. Pretty much through my whole time at school, I was the only guy rowing, but I had there's a couple of girls who were a few years ahead, and they were really, really fast, and went on to be world champions and pretty exceptional. And so they always kept me on my toes, and had another club mate there. The four of us, me and Bryce and the two girls, were really, really good mates, and that helped a lot in those first 4 or 5 years.
Nice. And so then how do you step it up, I guess, from that sort of club environment? How do you step up then to the elite environment?
Well, like everything, I think it's a gradual step up, but I think the turning point for me was probably in 2013 when I think there was a race at Twizel, and the weather was absolutely awful, and I entered in, I think it must have been the open single for the first time, and because the weather was horrible, and being from the Otago Harbour, we were quite used to it. And so I was leading these guys who were in the New Zealand team, and I was leading them to about 500 to go, and then it flattened out, and they were able to pass me. But I came off the water, and I thought, oh, hell, I was able to, I was right up there with them. That was pretty cool. And I said to my parents, look, I want to go for the junior team this year, and I said, oh, what do you think? And at the time, finances were a little bit sketchy, and Dad set me a challenge. He said, oh, what do you think you'd need to do to make the team? And I said, probably have to win the under-17s and medal in the under-18s. And he said, right, if you can do that, we'll back you. Having the support of Mum and Dad has always been something that has just taken that stress away from my training. Yeah, like most things, you sort of gradually climb the ladder. So I started off, did juniors, had my first taste at World Champs, and then moved up to the under-21s, and then finally into the under-23 team.
Nice. And so, what was about a month ago now that you guys won the world champs for the under-23s, and I believe was the first ever New Zealand quad to medal at a world champs, which is pretty phenomenal, eh? Talk us through that day.
Oh, the day, certainly the 4 or 5 days of that regatta and leading up to that race, has been the most stressful of my life in terms of internal stress. And that day, I don't think any of us got any sleep. I was staying in the room with one of my closest mate who was sitting in the boat with me, and I could hear him tossing and turning all night. We didn't get much sleep, but it's quite funny. We get down to the lake and he's going, "How's everyone doing?" We go, "Oh, fantastic. Yep, no, feeling good, feeling great." But in the rows, I could sort of feel that we knew we'd gone quite hard in the semi-final because we wanted to put a good performance out and show dominance. But I knew that we were all feeling a little bit tired, and so we went for our pre-row, which is just a little lap around the course, and almost like a warm-up about 3 or 4 hours before the race. And I could sort of just feel everyone was a little bit down. It was going to be a really tough day. And then what we do is we sit in the tent. I'll keep off our legs for about 2 or 3 hours, and that was incredibly nervous. And I'd try to go through my processes to keep me calm. And a few things I've picked up on is the breathing. And one of the things I do just any time is the old jiggling your leg a lot, which I've sort of started to associate with being nervous. So I know that if I just relax that, it just helps keep me focused. And then trying to focus on something to keep my mind off it. So just yarning with the guys, trying to talk about anything other than rowing, really. Yeah, make sure that I'm not getting myself into the zone, the race zone, too early, because otherwise I'll overthink it, and there's no point in being in that zone for too long. You want to be getting there sort of just as you're getting into the start blocks, really.
And that's probably something for a lot of people, is that it's such a big event for them, whatever event they may be training for, and they're consumed by it for so long leading into the event. By the time it actually goes, they're exhausted because of that, mental energy expended. So you try and stay away from that zone as long as you can, eh?
Yeah, exactly, because when I get in there, I don't want to have to do it by thinking about it. I just want to be able to relax and let the autopilot take over. Back when I was at school, I used to visualise a lot, and sometimes I'd visualise the race how I wanted it days out from the race, which, it had its uses back then, but it could almost overhype me a little bit and make me quite nervous. Yeah, a little bit of nerves is fantastic. That's what you want. And I always say, right, it's nervous, that's cool. That means I care about it. That's what I want. Be stupid not to be nervous.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, over World Champs, and me and the other guy just played a silly little game. Something about breaking bricks on the phone. I must have played that for 2 hours non-stop, just trying to keep focused on it before the final. So we get on the water for our final, for our race. And as we're going through the warm-up, you can tell everyone's quite stressed, quite nervous. And we get to about 15 minutes before, and basically we've been using bicarb. Mm-hmm. So the sodium bicarbonate in your stomach, and I'm not sure exactly what quantities, but it would take about 30 Sodabic tablets.
Yep. How do you find that sits in the stomach?
Horribly normally. And
because I did a podcast a few episodes back about supplementation and things that work. This is proven by science, and sodium bicarbonate is one of the ones that's really well proven, and that's obviously why national teams are using it. And everyone always says, "Oh, that's way too much to take. How can people take it?" Well, this is firsthand, I guess, from you. How does it feel? How do you tolerate it? Is it a case of just sucking it up and getting it down you?
Yeah, sucking it up and being quite well prepared. So you want to make sure that you've been to the bathroom at least once that morning. I guess you want to make sure that everything's clear.
The pipes are clean, so to speak.
Yeah, and it can almost make you feel a little bit lethargic sometimes. So I tend to take quite a bit of caffeine if I'm using it. But when you're in racing, it definitely takes a bit of getting used to, especially for our distance, because it's quite hard to judge how hard you're actually going. And talking to some of the elites, when I first started using it last year, they said you can have your normal rhythm and then your bicarb rhythm, which you can almost, sit a little bit a point or two higher and just push yourself a little bit more. And I mean, when I first started using it, there'd be, no pain till like maybe the last couple 100 meters, and it's just really weird, which I think was probably a little bit of inexperience and just not being able to push myself as well as I needed to, because I couldn't have that pain to judge how I was going.
Yeah. So there's that removal of that pain stimulus to judge your pace and that sort of thing, because you're taking it. Yeah.
Yeah, and so this year, it was definitely not the pain-free bicarb racing that I was used to last year, I think. But I mean, this year we certainly went a lot harder, matured a lot. In the warm-up, the bloke just behind me, so it was about 14 or 15 minutes before race time, he says, "Jack, if we got a bit of time, I need to get out. I need to go to the toilet." And I was going, "What? No, are you sure, mate? Look, we can't. No, mate. No, it's
just hold it. Just hold it."
And he goes, "Okay. I think I can." And we sort of row up close to the start blocks, and he goes, "Nah, pull over to the side. We've got to get out." And so we all pull over, and we're going, don't panic, guys, don't panic. It's okay. And we have the high performance manager for Row New Zealand, who was about to watch the race, bikes over, and he's pulling everyone, and he's going, it's okay, you've got time, don't worry, everybody. And everyone's going, don't worry. And I was feeling so wound up, so nervous. But watching my mate run over into the bushes and strip down and sort of squat over like a greyhound, it just sort of made me laugh, made me smile a wee bit. And he got back in the boat, and I could just sense the relief. And I relaxed myself, and I thought, right, this is better. We're going to be okay. And even we rode the race. He says he got to halfway, and he got to the point where he thought, right, if it might happen again, I'm just going to have to let it go, and I'll jump into the water after we finish.
And clean off the boat that way.
Yeah. As it was, we finished the race, and as soon as we finished, he goes, keep tapping it over, keep rowing. I've got to get out. And as soon as we put the boat onto the land, he just staggers off to the toilet.
He was off again.
Yeah. So yeah, he was one of the younger boys, and it can cause different effects to you.
I mean, yeah, I guess it's a bit different when you're an individual planning your timing and dosage and everything, and only your sort of internal rhythms to have to manage, versus having four of you all on the same thing and having to manage everybody.
Yeah, that's true.
So how long did it take you to get down the course that day?
That day was a 5:41, I believe.
Yep. So, I mean, rowing's one of those sports where it's like extremely aerobic and extremely anaerobic at the same time, isn't it? The demands on both energy systems are absolutely huge. And sports like that hurt an unbelievably large amount. So how do you manage that pain, or how are you able to push that hard and break through that pain barrier, so to speak?
I think it's definitely one of those things that's come over time, and Now I'd be able to do it a lot more consistently. Every piece, be able to push myself to where I need to be, and I'm no longer scared of it. Whereas certainly in the younger days, a lot of the fear or the nerves from racing came from fear of the pain, and this is going to hurt, and if it doesn't hurt, well, I'm not pushing myself hard enough, and I'm not going to get the result I want. And so Royal New Zealand, I think one of its huge strengths is that we train really, really hard, and we train ourselves to try and push harder in training than we have to in racing. And so every day we're going out there and we have a thing called prognostics, which you get set off relative to the world record time. And that can be, quite a challenge if you're on Royal New Zealand, where a lot of the people have set the world records themselves. And so your aim is to try and finish a piece in front of these people who've been set off on the world best gaps.
Mm-hmm.
And so, these are your mates, the people you live with, and, you might get left on the water, but when you get home, you just have that feeling of, I beat you today. And so everyone's absolutely fighting for bragging rights, really. And that helps build the culture.
How is it living with that sort of pressure each day of having to each day kind of, I guess, prove yourself or to better and back up? How do you manage that?
For me, it's been treating each day as its own wee challenge and breaking it down into pieces. So if I've got a 4K piece, I might say, right, there's 500, and that was one thing that we did a lot this year in our quad was say, right, we're racing to the next 500. We don't care about what's happening afterwards. We're going to get to the next 500 marker as fast as we can, and we'll worry about what happens later because we know that we're not going to die. We've got the fitness for that, and we were just trying to realise that you can push yourself a hell of a lot harder than your mind thinks you can.
And I think that's a big thing that a lot of people struggle with is always having that conserving energy for just in case, but you've really got to lay it all out there, don't you?
Oh, for sure. And it's definitely something that you've got to train for. And I mean, because I do, I row every day, I can push myself with rowing a lot easier than I could if it's a different skill set. So it's, almost when I can go on that autopilot and just let the race mind take over.
What does, if just as much as you like, just give us a wee insight into what your sort of day-to-day training looks like?
Oh, typically up here in Waikato at Royal New Zealand, we can wake up at more gentlemanly hours than I have in the past. So just normally wake up between 6 and 6:30 in the morning, get up, have some Weet-Bix and milk for breakfast, or maybe some toast, and then we're down between sort of 6:45, 7 o'clock at the sheds. I like to have quite a long warm-up. I do a bit of stretching, jump on the foam roller is really good, and on the rowing machines. And, everyone's a little bit individual, so I know what I need to do in the morning to loosen myself up, especially around the shoulders and some trigger points in my back. And then on the water 7 to 7:30, and most mornings it'll be between 20 and 30 kilometres, so about an hour and a half to 2.5 hours. And sort of Monday, Wednesday, Saturday is quite high intensity speed work, and every other morning can vary between speed work and a long hard row. So I like to get off the water we'll get that recovery in as soon as we can. Even before we've washed the boat and put it away.
So you're smashing like a recovery shake, as soon as you get out of the boat, as you're washing it down, sort of thing.
Yeah. So protein, and we get the Anchor truck, who Anchor or Fonterra supplies us with the Primos and the Fast Starts, and so we can walk over the fridge and get a bunch of those for the crew, and then just chuck in some lollies, cream dry ice, bananas, and we'll do that the turnaround in the rows as well, which I've found has been quite a crucial thing for keeping the energy up throughout the entire day. Is taking as much food on board as you can.
And that's really targeted at obviously that recovery, with the Primos and the Fast Starts, that are carbohydrate and protein.
Yeah.
In those, and then you're looking at smashing carbohydrate to keep you're fueled up during the session as well, eh?
Yeah, exactly. And I've tried to get into a habit of getting in the recovery food before the workout's even finished, just to really nail that timing of it after the workout's finished. And so I went through a period, it's been sort of February, March this year, where I was really struggling to hold weight, and I was struggling in training, and I sort of finished one week and thought, right, let's have a look at what I'm doing. I sat down, and the big thing I changed was probably the timing of everything. And so I just started, chucking in protein and chucking in lollies and putting lots of Raro in the water bottle. And I managed to, pop right back up, put on about 6 or 7 kilos, and had a, huge improvement in my workload, which was absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, nice. I mean, once you got the fuel on board, you can put the work out. If you don't have the fuel on, you're sort of buggered, aren't you?
Yeah, and the nutritionist put it pretty well this year to us, is that, some people, they do underfuel themselves and they are still able to perform. And yes, you might still be able to get the performance, but it's the other parts of your life that'll get a bit buggered. So maybe it might be your muscles, your growth, your bones might start to deteriorate, and your overall health. And so it's the long term of your body that you want to think about.
Yeah, big time. Keeping that energy up to meet the output.
Yeah, exactly.
Nice, mate. So that's morning training. What do you do from there on?
So depending on the day, we might have a second session shortly after, about an hour after, a little bit of sitting around and recovering, and then so the second session will be a little bit shorter and can be more technical based. Or it might be a weight session, which we do for about 90 minutes up in the gym. And I study up here at Waikato. I study engineering, and so I try and squeeze that in between rows and workouts, which is normally quite good down at Row New Zealand, because I've got computers and I can stream all my lectures, and so it makes it quite easy. That is, it's getting into labs, which can be a bit of a pain, and working around the training program for that. And so we'll have a second session, maybe midday, and then we might be back down for another row at 2:30, 3 o'clock, just to finish us off. And after that, we'll go home and make some dinner, chill out for a wee bit, and hop off to bed about 9 o'clock.
Right, sounds like a pretty full-on day. What sort of how many hours of sleep are you aiming to clock up there?
Oh, at least 8 is what we aim for. If I get to bed at 9 and I wake up at 6, I think it's about 9 hours.
And just on nutrition there again, you touched on it briefly. What does your sort of lunch and dinner look like, out of interest?
As much as I can try and fit in. I tend to struggle to eat. I don't know why, but sometimes I can be sitting at the dinner table for an hour and a half, just really, really slow. but I know that I've got to get that fuel in, and I'll just have to sit there and treat it as fuel. But in the cupboards, I tend to try and keep a fair bit of variety so I don't get bored, don't get flavour fatigue. I love pasta and sauce, and because I got a fair bit on, it's nice to have that convenience of a good pasta sauce and some ready-made pasta, maybe a bit of tuna, and you got a pretty easy, fantastic lunch or snack in there. But dinner can be just meat and 3 veg is pretty stock standard, and that's all it needs to be. Just lots of carbs, plenty of protein, and a good bit of greens to keep up the health as well.
Nice one, mate. So, I mean, your whole approach to nutrition is quite, real food based. You're not sort of doing too many supplementations or anything like that. It's just eating real food.
No, just a good variety of greens and fruit and veggies.
So, where to from here? What are the big goals in mind from here on in?
Next year, I want to be in the elite men's quad. So I want to leave the age group behind. I want to start building this elite men's quad for the Tokyo Olympics with a view to winning gold there.
Awesome, mate. And obviously a bit of work to put into that now.
Yeah, tons of work. So the men's elite quad, as a New Zealand quad, has never made the A final at Elite World Champs yet. So in 3 years, to go from there to an Olympic gold is a huge task, but I was sitting down with a goal setting session the last week, and sort of the guy looks at me and says, "Oh yeah." I said, "Well, way to go." And I said, "Well, you got to set the goals high, because even if you don't quite get there, you'll be easier to achieve something great rather than if you just set your goal as something reasonably achievable, and if you only set it there, you might not even get there."
Yep. Yeah, so you sort of shoot for the stars and you'll land on the moon sort of theory.
Yeah. And you're looking at our world champs, you've definitely got to be able to win on a bad day. And so that was a horrible day for us, and we were still able to come away with the win because that's what we'd trained for. And all the practice little regattas we'd had as part of Rowing New Zealand, our coach just made sure we pushed right through with training, didn't taper off, so that we were racing tired. And we basically never rowed fresh or never knew what it felt like to row with a fresh body until we got to World Champs.
What and you said it was a bad day for you guys. What about it was bad?
I think everyone knew that, or in the crew, we knew we were feeling pretty tired, and I think it was the semi-final, because New Zealand is not typically a fast-starting rowing nation. Our goal was to go out there and really put the kibosh on everyone and go out there and win from the start, and we did. In the semi-final, we went out there and all guns blazing. But the other nations tapered off a little bit more than we did, and it was a headwind, so it took a little bit out of us.
Right.
And so as we were riding around the next morning, I was thinking, oh, this is a little bit heavier than it usually is. But, we'll see how we go. Probably just the adrenaline. We'll be all right. But as we started the A final, and yesterday or the day before, we were able to come out and be right out there, but everyone just dropped us, and so we looked around and go, oh dear, this might be quite an interesting one.
So it was mainly just that fatigue of the accumulative racing leading up to that point that was tough on the day, eh?
Yeah, that, it may be lack of sleep.
Yep.
Leading up to it. I mean, if you have one night's bad sleep just before the event, normally you're sweet as, you're fine if you've had a good week of sleep, but it was an accumulative lack of sleep. It probably got us.
Yeah, that's interesting, mate. That's really interesting, eh? Oh, mate, well, thank you so much for your time, and, huge congratulations on, being a world champion. Must be such an amazing feeling.
Oh, it's not too bad. It's nice to finally get there. And hopefully not the first.
Yeah, the start of many great things, eh?
Exactly.
Good, man. Well, I look forward to talking to you in the future. And hopefully, we'll see where the journey takes you.
Hey, thank you very much. It's great to hear from you again, Matt. And
well, there you have it, team. I hope you found that interview with Jack O'Leary interesting, insightful, and helpful with you moving towards your goals. The last few weeks we've been talking a lot about the mental edge, that motivation, that ability to focus and push yourself, and it is such a huge part of sport on all levels, especially at the elite level. And elite athletes always come back to that mental training that they do, that motivation and how important it is to them. Their physiological training is getting so advanced and so minute that everyone up on the podium has got similar physiology. They've probably all done similar training, and often the thing that separates them is that mental edge. So keep working on your mental edge, and remember that question I asked back at the start of the podcast. What's your favourite way to maintain your motivation, whether it be a video, a song, a quote, a book? Post a comment below, let me know what it is. And if you've got a question that you want me to answer on the podcast, please head over to the Exponential Performance Coaching website under the podcast tab and leave me a voice message, and I will do my best to answer it for you. If you want more specific, personalised responses to your questions or to your training inquiries, head over to my Reach Me account at reach.me/Matty Graham, and you can ask me questions that I will specifically get back to you privately with the information that you're after for a very small fee. Until next week, get out there and train hard, but most importantly, train smart.